and she gave me a Christmas card. Oh no, maybe it was a birthday card actually, now I'm thinking about it. And it was a blank card. She'd bought the card and forgotten to write in it. Welcome to the Dyslexia and Adults podcast, where we share advice on what works with dyslexia to ensure that you're able to achieve your potential. You won't believe this, but we just hit 100,000 downloads. So to make sure that we're able to share this advice with even more people, we would really appreciate it if you could just leave us a review or share this episode with a friend. But more importantly, we have a very special secret gift as a thank you for listening in the show notes. Christmas can be incredibly challenging if you are neurodiverse. There is lots of pitfalls to be had. And in this week's episode of the podcast, we are going to share some of our stories, some of the challenges we've had to help you feel less alone and maybe share some tips along the way. So, Katie, let's talk Christmas nightmares.
I just first have to say Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Like, great to say, terrible to spell. I cannot, I as a child couldn't figure it out, and I'm now a grown ass adult and I still can't figure it out. I just use Xmas now, or I just break it up and I'm like, it is what it is. So yeah, can we just first acknowledge that both holidays are terrible to spell? And I think Hanukkah has two correct spellings, if I am not mistaken.
I wouldn't even know where to begin with Hanukkah, and I've very rarely got Christmas right, so I am right there with you.
Do you still write holiday cards or like sign cards to family and friends?
No, not really. I'm not, well, you know this, I'm not like a huge Christmas person, so I would write Christmas cards to kind of the older members of my family that kind of it was more non-negotiable rather than, something I did because I wanted to. But no, I very rarely write Christmas cards, and if I do, then I'm probably writing them twice because I'm spelling something wrong.
I think the last time I wrote a Christmas card was probably 2011 or 12. I used to write the one for the full family. There's like 5 or 6 of us. And it was always riddled with errors. And like the tone was great because it's me. So I'm like, and this year Elizabeth got a new puppy, which is really peeing all over the place. Like it was just really like cute and like fun. But I remember having to go to my like younger brother and being like, Augie, can you please spell check this for me? Like, talk about
Oh,
embarrassing. Like, I'm the older sister and I'm asking my younger brother to like spell check the family like newsletter for me. So I remember those days. But yeah, no, older family members, I have a couple of those too, where I still have to send out a card and then like a picture of the family, be like, wishing you all of the best this holiday season. Cause I can spell holiday. I cannot spell Christmas though.
my problem with Christmas is not so much the Christmas cards because I just don't write them. My deepest issue is having to be the navigator and navigating to places, and then the amount of fights that I would get into with my ex-boyfriend because I was just so bad at directions. I would say, "Oh, turn that way," and he would be like, "Which way is that way?" And I was like, "Oh, left," and he was like, "It's right," and I was like, "But you said you which way was that way?" So that was my I used to get in so many disagreements because he would be rude, I would be flustered, and then it just all went awfully.
Can we just talk about how those always happen right before you're going to like the holiday company party? And then you have to like put on that face like we're a cute, happy couple, and really you're like seething inside and you're like, this is my partner, Jeremy. It's nice to meet him. He's great. I don't want to murder him. Like, we're not condoning murder. But like that, the having to turn on the stage face as you're like shaking hands with your boss's wife. Ugh. Which
We
also company holiday parties. I have this like deep fear of getting someone's name wrong. So I used to work for a company and one of the three bosses had this wife and I could not remember her name for the life of me. And so every year we would get in the car, me and Bruno, and before we were headed up there, and I'd be like, okay, so this person's wife is this person's wife is this person, and this person's wife I cannot remember. So you have to introduce yourself first every holiday party, every single one.
we don't have like partners come to holiday parties or Christmas parties in the UK, it's usually, well, every Christmas party I've ever been to, it's just been a massive piss up after work. So it's very much the partners aren't invited, and the stuff that happens is not appropriate for the partners. But I also used to really struggle that way because I would work at big companies where you would often have people that you'd only see at the summer party or the Christmas party, and it would be one of those situations where like you know their face but you've forgotten their name, or you're just like not quite sure how you pronounce their name, like, and you're just kind of like, oh, how many ways can I think of like not saying your name, or kind of like awkwardly not introducing someone because you're like, oh, I just don't know what to do, I don't know your name and I'm so embarrassed, or you've already told me your name and I've forgotten it 30 seconds later. Oh, the stress and the strife. I feel like I am an expert in how to not say someone's name, like how to learn to be like cultivate a sentence without their name.
So I feel the exact same way. And I do the partner, like the boyfriend thing where I'm like, I don't know their name. You need to introduce yourself first. That way I can get it. So I do that all the time. And also like just being 2 drinks in and trying to remember people's names, like it's
Mm.
awful. And the holiday party, you're supposed to be like extra nice and you're supposed to talk to, I don't know. Um, but forgetting things, I want to ask if this is a problem you have. I have a pretty extensive list of family that I have to get gifts for. And some of them I'm like, okay, I always get my brother a book. I always get my niece and nephew like a toy. But then there's other people in my life where I really think about it. Like my mom, for instance, I really put a lot of thought and effort into what I want to get her every year. And I think this is maybe just a me thing, but it might not be. I will have the best ideas and then they're gone 2 seconds later. And usually it's like in the shower or when I'm driving and I'm like, I can't write this down. Hold on to the thought. Hold on to the thought. I think maybe it's just a me thing, but is that a problem for you too?
Oh, 100%, but not so much with presents because, again, I'm just a massive Grinch and don't really love Christmas. So I don't get a lot of people presents. Wow, I sound like such a delight. But I don't get lots of people presents. But the thing that really I struggle with is that, but for social posts. So I'll like have this genius idea for like an Instagram post or something, and I'll be in the shower and I'll be like, should I just get out? Should I stay in? I don't know what to do. Like this is just genius. And then I'm just crucifying myself for only remembering these kind of things in that moment. And it's so frustrating. And I think also to kind of assuage my guilt of the fact that I'm not getting a lot of people Christmas presents, there is something joyous about everyone in your life having ADHD that we're all as bad as each other. So none of us get anyone, like I don't get Christmas gifts. My family don't give them. I don't have to give them. And so we're all just thriving in our own chaos, which works.
I'm kind of really jealous of that because I have the opposite side of the spectrum, which is like I'm living with my dyslexia and my ADHD, and I'm like, I have to plan absolutely everything. Like I have a spreadsheet that I have been keeping since 2017. It's got every gift I've ever gotten anyone. It's got
Ow.
all the meal prep plans, the timing for the food, I mean, we do Christmas pretty big at our house. It's one of the few holidays that we really go all out for. And so it's just absolutely wild to me that like the other side of it is like, nope, we just have an unspoken rule. We just don't do gifts and it is what it is. Like I kind of love that. And I don't know. One year I might try it. We'll see what happens. Just be like, nobody's getting gifts and we're not making any food. We're gonna have tacos.
For anyone that's watching on YouTube, you will see Katie's like decked out holiday setup, and then there's me in South Africa, just not a single thing, not a tree, not interested. I remember one year my mum went took me out shopping on Christmas Eve and was like, your budget is, I don't even remember how much. This is like in the early 2000s. Let's say £100. And she was like, just buy yourself whatever you like. And then he wrapped it and then gave it to me the next day. And I like she is just such a wonderful person. So this is not a sob story at all. And she gave me a Christmas card. Oh no, maybe it was a birthday card actually, now I'm thinking about it. And it was a blank card. She'd bought the card and forgotten to write in it.
Yeah, so I am a huge cook just like regularly, But then when it comes to the holidays, I go pretty insane. But I have to ask you this question. Again, this is another I every person I've ever asked, they've given me the same answer, but have you ever mixed up teaspoon and tablespoon and just ruined something?
Not ruined anything, but I just look at it and I'm like, what is that? What what does that mean? And then I have to Google it. And then it's so embarrassing because you Google it and then you go back like 5 minutes later and you're like, still don't know what that means. And you go back to your phone. Like I'm just kind of just like in between every 30 seconds, like tablespoon, teaspoon, and just chronically stressed about it.
Okay, so my answer's the exact same, except like, okay, so normally I'm pretty fast. Like my brain's fast, I'm moving fast. But when it comes to tablespoon versus teaspoon, I read the recipe. Tablespoon. I say it exactly like that. And then I pick up the implement and I look at the side of it and I go, tablespoon, because it's TBS or TS. And so tablespoon. Okay, it's got all three letters. I can cook with this one. Um, Another thing that drives me nuts. And shout out to my mother-in-law. She's fantastic. She's a wonderful woman, but she is like an old school cook. So it's a lot of like, oh, a pinch of this, a handful of this, a dash of this, till it's enough milk. And you're like, what is enough? Like, I don't know what enough looks like in this cake batter. So that's probably a little bit more the autism side of
I
like,
was gonna say
ah,
that is not good instructions for an autistic person until it's enough.
so, look, I can do it after I've made the recipe a few times, but like for the most part, first time, absolutely not. She's like, oh no, you just put a little cheese in it if you need. And I'm like, how much is a little cheese? What kind of cheese? Do I weigh the cheese or do I shred the cheese? Like, I'm a disaster when it comes to getting those like family hand-me-down recipes. Um,
I
so when you
also am
guys,
a terror. My terror with cooking is also timing because I will like start cooking things, not really think about things, and then before I know it, I'm like, oh my God, everything's like coming to getting ready. Everything is like on the edge of ready, and I'm like trying to manage all these different things, and it's just chaos. Some things will be cold, some things will be cooked, some things will be burnt, and it's just I'm like trying to manage it, like trying to pretend it's not a problem. Well, gravy is a very serious thing in our household. There's a family recipe that we take very seriously. So just slather gravy on everything to make sure that people don't realize it's really
I feel like that's a really good like pro tip. Gravy. Like if you're gonna get anything out of this episode on ADHD, dyslexia, autism for the holidays, you just need gravy. That's it.
salt. Only tip
Salt
you
and
need.
gravy. We in our house we I used to do everything by myself and that was a mistake. Because I had the same problem you do where it's like the potatoes are like cold, but then the ham is burnt. So a few years ago, I turned to my partner and I was like, look, you're doing the meats. I will prep them, but you have to deal with cooking them and timing them and figuring them out. And then I'll take care of like the sides. And then I also discovered crock pots. So when I make my potatoes, because I'll make them earlier in the day, I put it like a pat of butter down in the bottom, put the potatoes on top, put it on warm, and put more butter on top. And then I just let them sit there for a few hours and it doesn't ruin them. Crock pots, for anyone who's not American, are like warming pots essentially that just keep things warm, or you can like slow cook things over the course of, hours.
Oh, nice. My thing is also my like little tip that I'm sure everyone is already using is just remembering to set timers on stuff because object permanence is strife when it comes to cooking. The amount of times I will go put something in and I forget to set in a timer and then I'm like sat there and someone will be like, didn't you have food in the oven? I'm like, yes, like run, like jump up, run to the kitchen.
So let me level it up one more. Label the timers because I've
Oh,
done
that's
that too.
genius.
Yeah. Okay. So in my house, we have echoes. I'm not going to say her name because then all of them will go off. So I'll be like, set a turkey timer for an hour and 27 minutes. And then I don't have to worry about when it goes off, knowing which timer was for what.
That is really smart. I've never thought of doing that.
Well, now we're all leveling up today. Um, so what is the most ruined thing you have ever cooked?
Um, oh, this is more dyspraxia. But I have been known to drop food quite a lot because I'm quite clumsy. So I remember once the said ex-boyfriend that I was talking about that would get annoyed in the journeys and the driving. He got his comeuppance that I on our like I don't know like first date where we were at university like back at our house or something like my university flat when I was oh shit sorry Jacob he got his comeuppance because one time when I was at university, I remember the first time I ever cooked him something, I dropped it all on the floor. And this is a university house that
Oh
was not that
no.
clean. And I just picked it up off the floor, put it on his plate, and smiled.
Oh, that's so, I hate that kind of thing. I luckily haven't dropped anything. That feels really mortifying, especially like first time cooking for someone. Um, my great grandmother passed away when I was in university, and she every year used to make these little sand tart cookies, and you roll them out really, really, really thin, and then you put like a little almond in it, you make them in fun shapes. And so a few years ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to make these for the family as a gift because everyone loved Nanny Sand Tarts. And so I like was baking them and I did what you said is you forget the timer. And the first batch I made, mind you, one batch makes like 50 cookies. So I had like four batches going at the same time. And I forgot to set the timer and I burnt them to a crisp. And I had to do all the work again and rolling out the cookie dough to get it really, it just took hours. I was so mad at myself. Thankfully, it wasn't like dessert or something and no one knew it was going to happen. So it was like a nice surprise, but still, I've never had more rage at myself.
Oh, I can just imagine how annoyed you would be at yourself. And for everyone listening, I hope these stories have helped you feel less alone and shared the reality that Christmas, when you're neurodiverse, can throw up some fun surprises and to try and be a little bit more kind to yourself. And thank you so much for listening and have a Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Dyslexia in Adults podcast. Whether or not this is your first listen or your 100th, I am so grateful that you decided to entrust me with this challenge. If you enjoyed this week's episode, I would really appreciate it if you could review and subscribe to the podcast because it really helps us to reach more people.